Alright, so in the last video we were talking about The Map of Consciousness by David R. Hawkins. And this is a follow-up video, so if you haven't, this is not going to make any sense if you haven't watched the previous one, but what we're talking about is the map of consciousness, the calibrated level of consciousness between 0 and 1,000, and we're talking about what those levels are. And in this video I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to share with you about what I know and what I've learned about how they're measured. So it's 0 to 1,000, 200 being anything above 200 is truth and integrity, and anything below 200 is non-integrity and lack of presence of truth. Make sense? So you have, again, I'm going to go over really quick. Level of 20 is shame, 50 is apathy, 100 is fear, 150 anger, 200 courage, 350 acceptance, 500 love, peace, 600. Those are just some of the points, some of the main points, okay? And there's a bunch in between. Okay, so how it's measured. Okay, so the premise of this is, in the presence of that which is life supportive, the muscle goes strong. So what's life supportive? Okay, Mother Teresa, if she life supportive, yes. In the presence of Mother Teresa, muscle goes strong. Jesus is life supportive, yes. Love is life supportive, yes. I don't know. The St. Paul Cathedral is life supportive, yes. It's like 640 calibration or something like that, right? Truth is life supportive, yes. It makes the muscle go strong, okay? Now, that which is not life supportive makes the muscle go weak. Bin Laden is life supportive? No. Hitler at the time of death? No. Falsehood or lack of presence of truth, life supportive? No. Okay, so when you think about this, our mind, our brain is very limited. We can know about things, but we don't essentially know things. We have a lot of opinions, but they don't need a whole lot of anything. They don't mean a whole lot, right? So oftentimes you think we're right, we're really not. We just have a viewpoint, we just have an opinion. It doesn't mean anything. So our brain is very limited. And we have no, from our brain, we have no way to tell truth from falsehood. We just don't. You can think all you want, you can reason all you want, you don't know for sure if somebody's telling the truth. Right? So they did a bunch of studies, people looking at videos of speeches in the past that we know now were false, and they had the people watch it, and they're for sure believed, like 100% convinced the person is telling the truth. A simple muscle test, it's like pressing down on an arm, shows instant weakness. Instant weakness. Okay? And by the way, the body recovers within seconds, so you don't stay weak forever, right? Just because you heard the word Bin Laden. But with the thought of Bin Laden makes the muscle go weak. Make sense? That's how the testing is done. That's the basic premise, right? So we have this database of human consciousness, and the body is connected to that. Our brain isn't. Our brain has no idea, right? Our ego mind has zero clue. It makes up a bunch of stories but has nothing to do with the truth. But our body actually knows. So through a simple muscle testing, you can find out the truth of something. So now, how is the scale calibrated? It's very simple. A scale was made up. It's very arbitrary. You could make up your own scale if you wanted. Instead of 0 to 1,000 logarithmic scale, you could make a scale of 0 to 100, whatever. On a scale, but this is the scale that we use because that's what Hawkins' team designed. It's been used for since 1995 when the Power versus Force came out, and it's been used by thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and by governments and all that stuff. So that's the scale we use. All right, so how we find the level of consciousness of something, we have the scale, and we know that For example, 200 is courage, 310 is willingness, 500 is love. So we ask, okay, is this person above 200? Yes, no. If yes, this person is above 200. If yes, the muscle stays strong. If no, the muscle goes weak. Then we ask, is the person about 250, about 300, about 350, about 400, and so on and so forth, until we get to a no, and then we backtrack and find the correct number. Okay? So it's how we can know the exact level of consciousness of everything. Alright, not just people. We can ideas, different sentences, different statements, not sentences, different statements can be calibrated. You know what's a fascinating one that was totally life-changing for me? The exact time of death is set at the time of birth. That calibrates is true, guys. You know the news of this? There's nothing for you to worry about because your survival is guaranteed till you die. I mean, and the time of death is already set, right? Now, should you start just eating pizza and not worry about anything? Well, I mean, how you die is kind of up to you, right? You could be a vegetable for 10 years and living in, I don't know, old folks' home and be totally sick. Or you could drop dead as one of those, it's really fun to think about. There's this famous trail runner, Caballo Blanco. He drops dead in the middle of his run, right? He's like ultra marathon. He's so healthy. He drops dead in the middle of the run, and people just could not figure it out. It's like heart's carting this, and ultra running is bad for you, da-da-da. I was like, no, the time of death is already set at the time of birth. The guy just died when he was supposed to die, right? So it's quite interesting. Also, another thing that is interesting, the soul does not enter the body, the spirit does not enter the body until month 3 of the fetus. I don't know why. This is just what calibrates is true. So it's been tested. So yeah, so that's what muscles of anybody that can do muscle testing, you ask that question, you ask them which month it is, and they'll tell you it's month 3. Okay, so muscle testing, who can do it and who can't do it. So when Dr. Hawkins first discovered this, he sat on it for 10 years. He went and got himself a PhD and this and that, and didn't want to sell it to the world because he thought, okay, this could be abused. You know, if it got to the wrong hands, you know, people can find out anything, da-da-da, they'll use it to win global wars, whatever. What he didn't know, because he assumed anybody could use it, just because he could. The problem is not everybody can. So nobody below 200 can use it. So that's good news. People who are not integrous do not have access to it. It's kind of a good thing, right? Because you can find out a lot of things. Calibrating, you can find out pretty much anything. Well, not everything, because sometimes you don't have permission to ask a question. But if you're not integrous, if you're below 200, you cannot, kinesiology muscle testing won't work for you, okay? Above 200, it still doesn't work for a lot of people, right? There's self-testing, like the way I'm practicing, and sometimes I get it's like try to break a ring, right? But the problem I have is that I can only calibrate accurately things I absolutely do not care about. Like I calibrated Eiffel Tower accurately, the level of calibration of a circus, police station, just stuff that I have I just don't have an opinion about. But the minute I have some kind of position, the left brain will decide and override the test. So it's a little bit of a spiritual practice, and it's years of study for some people, and I think it's going to be years for me before I can calibrate things accurately. So it's like all these people doing muscle testing here and there and messing it up, and it gets a bad rap. Well, yeah, because they have positionality about it. It actually doesn't work for them, because if you have a position about something, you're not going to get an accurate result. So it takes people years of spiritual growth to be able to be completely, well, there's no such thing as objective, but, you know, less subjective, I suppose, to a point where you can actually use it. That's why 2 people muscle testing, one presses the arm, the other one resists, can be a little bit more accurate because you have 2 people, but they still cannot have any attachment to the outcome. It's best if they calibrate something that they have no opinion about, all right? It's used for research, right? When you're researching areas that they, yeah, there's no opinion. There's no opinion. Okay, so I've had some luck. Most of the times I have some position that gets in my head and I cannot get anywhere. The other thing that when it doesn't work, husbands and wives that are doing paired muscle testing don't have much success. It has something to do with the commingled chi energy. And there is, of the people that are above 200 that have the potential to use muscle testing as a method of the research, about 10% for unknown reasons, or I think it might not be unknown anymore. I don't know if it was research. I seem to remember it had something to do with the misalignment of the chi energy, some messed up energy basically. They can't calibrate. There's also, and if you heard this, like, ha 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 ha, this is supposed to reset your acupuncture system. So if you're not getting accurate results, you can do that, and it helps you. If you're generally getting good results in muscle testing, and you stop getting good results, you can reset your acupuncture system back with your thumb on here, and that helps. Okay, but in general, what I do, there's a lot of study groups, and I see the results. Somebody posted a question, the results are all over the place, right? Everybody has their own answer, and maybe like 50% of the answer is going to be similar. I'm like, okay, right, so I'm going to trust this result because a lot of the people are getting it. If 80% of the people get the same result, then I'm like, okay, so that might be it. Or there's people I absolutely trust because they always get accurate results, and I ask them, you know, privately. I've had my level of consciousness calibrated by somebody who's been doing it for 7 years, and I trust their results because they're always accurate and they always match what the book says, or later it gets calibrated by a larger group and the results match or something. So there's a couple of people that whose results I absolutely trust. But yeah, you know, like I said, it can be, you know, I am on a mission to learn and to become pretty accurate and use it in my business, but I know it's going to be, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be years, but I know I have still a lot of positionality to give up, and about things and opinions and things like that get in the way. One thing that, just reading the results, when I do that, it's really awesome because it's really enlightening, really. You look at, gosh, we have opinions about everything, right? And you think it's this way. Yeah, there's an example. This was funny. I was studying calibration. I was testing different states, right? So I take the book and I cover the results and I try to calibrate with the simple muscle test, and I see where I get. And I was calibrating different states, and I got Alabama. It was in the 300s. I got that correctly, and then I was testing California, and I got to, like, I remember it was like 250, and I got 250 being correct. I was like, well, that can't be right. California can't be below Alabama in the level of consciousness. That's weird. I was like, oh, it must be wrong. So I kept testing, and then I got to 400 in California, and I look back, and actually, calling you for California, I don't remember the exact result, but I believe it was about 100 points below Alabama. I was like, this is exactly where the positionality, the position about something and your opinion of something gets in the way, right? So there you have it. Alabama is more conscious than California. I thought it was just hilarious. I've never been to Alabama. I don't know what to say about it, but it's quite interesting, right? I would wonder where Boulder sits, because some of the new AG stuff actually, surprisingly, it does not calibrate high at all, right? The psychics and mediums and fairies and angel reading and whatnot actually doesn't calibrate above 200, and tarot card reading, it's yeah, some of that stuff is below 200. Astrology is, you would think it's very high. It's only 210. Numerology, that means it's still integrous. It gives you some result, but it gets misused for causality, right? Good astrologist will explain to you that they're nothing. It's not that the planets are causing something. The planets are not causing anything. Nothing is causing anything. It's everything is happening in the same field, spontaneous of its own, right? So anyway, would I go with that? Yeah, and funny thing is that I just I went to an angel card reader, and I got really it was really helpful. So I suppose you could say, if you're going to go to a channeler or a card reader or somebody like that, you want to make sure that you want to make sure you're working with somebody and you have their level of consciousness calibrated. If you're talking to a channeler, what's the level of consciousness of the channeler and the entity on the other side? Okay, because this is where people get stuck. I'm not going to go too much into details because you got to listen to some of these Hawkins lectures on that. Is the entities on the other side have no interest in your well-being. They have their own interest in their own things they have interest in, okay? So be careful when you go there because you don't know the rules. It's not that it doesn't exist, it's that we don't know the rules. And sometimes, so Hawkins says, you know, can't enter that without paying a entry fee. So be super careful when you go there. And sometimes, you know, I was dating somebody who was Wiccan, and Wicca calibrates at 160, right? So many people go crazy practicing that stuff. And, you know, they would have people go into these really awful states and this ghost and whatever, and it was like they sacrifice chickens, I don't remember, and then instead of, you know, they have these orgies and fertility celebrations, whatever they call it, right? And then they make it all about sex and things like that. It's just weirdness, just real weirdness. Nothing to do with God, nothing to do with spirituality. I mean, they think that they're talking, if they're talking to people on the other side, they're being spiritual. It's not. They're just talking to people on the other side, okay? Or people, not people, beings, right? So, oof, don't want to open that can of worms. And quite frankly, I just avoid this stuff for the most part, right? Because why get attached to a low level energy, right? When we know when I can look at spiritual teachers and know, okay, Course in Miracles 600, even though that's a channel text, so that's an interesting thing because that's a channel text, right? But it was more like an inner dictation than channeling of some other entity on the other side, right? By Helen and Bill. So so that's an interesting, there's a couple of channel texts. The Word by Paul something, gosh, I remember. I know his books are above the level of 500, which is kind of an exception too for channel text, at least from what I've seen. I hope I'm not lying to you right now, but I remember seeing those books being above 500, which is kind of exception for a channel text. Okay, that's all I want to say about channeling because, yeah, I'm not an expert on this and I don't intend to be. Okay, so yeah, that's how it's measured. There's, oh my gosh, there's entire lectures and books where Hawkins explained how they came across this. Sometimes they had thousands of people in an audience calibrating the same thing, all getting the same result. There's so much history. There's tens of thousands of people who've been doing this. If you want to learn more about this, I would say start with the Power versus Force, and then there is some non-devotional or devotional non-duality series on Audibles. Those are lectures from 2003. Lecture 2 talks more in detail about how this works, so you can study that. I'm not an expert on kinesiology or muscle testing. I am just a student. I'm just learning. I do not get accurate results, so do not ask me to calibrate something for you because I have no clue. I ask other people to calibrate things for me, and you know, I don't like to abuse it, so I don't ask harder questions, and I just focus on learning and studying, and hopefully I'll get there someday. That's my intention. But yeah, so that's what I have. That's all I have for you. You know, the reason I actually want to learn it is to serve my clients better, quite frankly, because I want to understand what's right for this person. There was a test. Is it in the highest good that I work with this person? It is in the highest good that they do public speaking. Is it in the highest good that they even do this business, right? And those are some good questions I want to be asking about my clients, so that I am able to be of a better service to them. So, and of course, I want to understand. I want to use it to help others grow, but I also want to use it to transcend some of my own levels of consciousness stuff, right? Like, I can calibrate different things, different states about my past life. Like, this gets super interesting. Like, for example, I was talking to my ex-husband, and we were just kind of talking about the past lives, and I was like, well, what do you think we're doing in a past life? And he goes like, I'm pretty sure we're brother and sister. And I'm like, oh my God, that explains so much. It just so rang true. And I posted a question on the forum, and I said, okay, so in one of the past lives, Sam and I were siblings, and everybody who calibrated that true false, everybody got a yes. So true. I was like, whoa, that saved me years. I wish I knew this years ago, guys, because it saved me years and years of guilt. I always had this, like, you know, in terms of physical attraction, he's a handsome, tall man, but oh my gosh, it just felt like, always felt, I always felt a little bit incestuous. It just wasn't right. There's something, right? And so, kind of like override it and deal with it, but it was like, it was never right, and it always felt like siblings. And we had this like sibling annoyance with each other from the beginning, and at the same time, this level of familiarity and comfort, because it was very easy to be around him. It always felt like family from the beginning. We actually got married about 5 weeks after we met, 6 weeks after we met, and some of that was frankly, it just felt like home, right? It just from the beginning felt like home. We got that mistaken for, you know, familiar, family-like home. But anyway, so I couldn't tell you enough about that because I have not studied about how the soul families work and all that. But it sounds like we made a agreement before entering this lifetime to trying different family dynamics than in one of the past lives. So that helps. If that is true, then, you know, I always had this sense of guilt about marrying him, because I was like, oh, I ruined this poor guy's life. I was never really that much in love with him, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you know, we're still awesome friends. We cared about you. We love each other. We want the best for each other. But it just, you know, the marriage thing, yeah, that just ran its course. So it's quite interesting knowing that, you know, finding that out kind of helps put things in perspective, right? And you have to do past life regression to find it out. So it's quite interesting. It was just a hunch that we had, and sometimes you have those hunches, right, about people around you, and you kind of feel like, I wonder if this person and I were married in a past life or something, right? And then you find out that you were, in fact. So yeah. So anyway, that's another way you can use muscle testing, and if you can't do it, you can ask other people for assistance and things like that. But anyway, hope this is helpful. It's super non-businessy, but you know, in the end, if you learn to calibrate, or if you find a calibration partner, you can use it to make decisions in business and you know, about life, and calibrate what's right for you. Another thing I want to say about this is that the question itself has to be integrous. Not only you have to be an integrous person, which takes 70% out, 70% of the world's population out. The question has to be integrous, right? And so you always ask a permission. I always ask, do we have permission to ask about this? Yes or no. If we have a permission, then we ask about it, right? But but for example, if I were to ask which ticket is a lottery winning ticket, I'm not gonna get an answer, right? Because it's not an integrous question, right? You have to look behind what's driving the question, right? Is it an attachment to money? Is it some kind of need? Is it a need to succeed? Like, it's best used for research, for genuine research, right? If your intention is to transcend levels of consciousness, to grow, unblock what's getting in your way, then you're going to have much more likely to have permission and to get a right answer. And if you're trying to calibrate, you know, something that is not integrous. Also, obviously, you cannot calibrate hypotheticals and you cannot calibrate future events. So, is my house going to sell in a year for 700,000? It's not. It's not calibratable. It's not a yes, no, right now, right? So, future and hypotheticals are not calibratable. So that's something to consider too. Yeah, end of the world is not calibratable either. When will the world end? Things like that. But you can find out whether UFOs are real and aliens are real, and whether there's alien abductions. By the way, alien abductions, in case you were wondering, do not calibrate as true. So do not worry about being abducted by aliens. I'll tell you, I had a coach. I loved her until she spent half our coaching sessions talking about people being abducted by aliens, and I'm like, really? So it's you know, it's funny because Hawkins himself had thought he saw aliens, and then he calibrated. It's like, yeah, there's no aliens. It was flying and then made a right angle and went there. It's like, aliens, right? It wasn't aliens. Whatever it was, wasn't aliens. So no UFOs, no aliens, no alien abductions. Yeah. There are some other statements that are true. I mentioned one. Time of death is set at the time of birth. That's true. Oops, battery dying. I better let you guys go because you're tired hearing about these numbers. But if you're not, shoot me a note because I want to know. Because this is something I'm so passionate and excited about. I could talk for hours and hours and hours and hours. This is awesome stuff. This is like, oh my gosh. There's my passion for business, and there is my passion for numbers and calibration and discovering the truth and commitment to truth, right? Because we actually have a way to measure the truth of something. We have a way of knowing somebody's lying to us. We have a way of knowing the next president, the set of presidential candidates. We have a way of looking at their levels of consciousness. And by the way, doesn't mean they're going to stay there. Might think of a presidential candidate if they're high consciousness, and they take a deep dive. So people who are in the 500s tend to get glamorized and not stay there. Not always, right? Oprah is still in the 500. She could run. She could stay there. She's used to the glamour. If she hasn't gotten glamorized, she probably, it might not happen. Well, I don't know, right? But she's still in the 500. But there's some others that are running that have dropped, or maybe temporarily, maybe they'll recover. We don't know. But we need to be careful. We need to be tracking where they're at now, what's their positions, and things like that. Anyway, I'll let y'all go. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and shoot me a note, send a comment, reply, let me know what you want to know. There's something that didn't sit well with you about what I was sharing, I frankly don't care. I don't want to know. That's for you to deal with. And yeah, I mean, some of this stuff is pretty controversial, such as UFOs are not a thing. If you're dealing with that, then I'm sorry, but I frankly don't care, because I'm gonna keep sharing this stuff, and yeah, I'll talk to you later.